Our home was built in 1875, when Germany itself was only 4 years old. In the first second of seeing this house, we had established it had a lot of history to tell. So today we're going to do our very best at telling that story. 4 years earlier, in 1871, the German Empire had just been proclaimed at the Hall of Mirrors at the Palace of Versailles. It was a brand new nation, a brand new emperor, and a brand new identity, while politicians like Otto von
Bismarck
were shaping Europe. Here in the rural Lower Saxony, someone was raising these exact beams by hand.
And 150 years later, they are still standing. (1875) was part of the Gründerzeit, the founders' era.
I couldn't say that.
Railways expanded across the whole countryside, factories rose in cities, and brick production became industrialized, which helped a lot.
But the rural life was still moving very slowly. Things called oxen were pulling the carts, fields and land determined wealth, and the churches marked time. And so Germany was becoming modern, but places like this house still lived very much in tradition.
And so to understand this house, we kind of have to understand the hierarchy of 1875 rural Lower Saxony.
And it was very structured, layered, and a very ordered society. At the very top stood the landowners, who were oftenly established farming families. They had properties which had been consolidated for generations, and some were privately owned, and some were historically tied to the church. The Protestant church, especially after the Reformation in northern Germany, held enormous social influence. Even here, it didn't directly own the land, but it shaped the whole community. So what was our house doing in 1875 when it was originally built?
Well, our house was most typically a Heuerhaus, which was kind of like a small rural dwelling in northwestern Germany that housed a Heuermann or Heuerling. And that word comes from Heuer, which means hire or wages. So it means literally a hired man's house.
And it was most typically smaller than the main farmhouse. It was very modest and solidly built, often timber framed, which is
Fachwerk.
with some brick infill, which was typical in the northern regions. It would have only 1 or 2 rooms with a small stable section. It was not decorative at the time. It was definitely more practical and economical. And it was most likely simple, with rectangular structures, and followed the traditions of the Lower Saxon Hall house, which had a very central purpose space in it.
The general style of the build is Fachwerk, and that's a very traditional central northern European building method based on a visible timber frame structure. The word breaks down as Fach, which means like panel or compartment, and Werk, which means like work or construction. So it literally means panel construction. We like it simple.
But it most practically refers to the wood-bearing skeleton, with having spaces that are filled with another material. Traditionally, and in Lower South Germany, it was wattle and dub or hay and brick. The key idea was that the wood frames would carry the weight of the house, and the infill was not structural, it was simply to fill the gaps. And to build a true Fachwerk house like this one, it was an engineered system. The structures consist of the vertical post, standard, horizontal beams, which are
Riegel,
diagonal braces,
Streben,
some corner posts and trusses. And these were connected by using mortise, and tendon joints, wooden pegs called
Holznägel.
And there was no metal nails required for this simple frame. The joints were literally cut precisely and locked together under the compression of the house.
So it's essentially a wooden skeleton that distributes the weight of the whole house downwards through the posts into a stone foundation. That's why many Fachwerk houses can survive easily like 300, 500 years or even longer.
Over the medieval period, wattle and daub, Often wooden branches and clay or straw, or even lime plaster were used to fill the spaces between the frames. However, in northern Germany, especially between the 18th and 19th century, the red brick became very common because Lower Saxony is rich with a lot of clay soil, which made the brick production especially practical and economical. So here in northern Fachwerk trends, it tends to be more brick heavy than in southern German examples, which have a lot more white plaster panels. One thing in particular that fascinates us both when we walk around the house is looking at the details and carvings of the beams. To believe that these were carved by hand is so incredible and so talented.
Oak was usually preferred because it just resists rot, it handles compression extremely well, and it even hardens over time, and so it just lasts centuries.
The trees were selected super carefully. Often they had to be 80 to 120 years old already. And they had a lot of large areas, sometimes designated as timber plots.
The tree usually was felled using, for example, long-handled felling axes and sometimes also two-man crosscut saws, so more in the later 19th century. So once the tree was felled, they first had to debark the trunk with jaw knives, and then they marked with chalk lines roughly the shape that they wanted to get using usually a broad axe. And this process is called hewing.
And this is why you can still see the old axe marks on many of these beams. It's the whole genius of Fachwerk. They used these mortise and tendon joints. Through both pieces they had no screws, no nails, and the frame would just lock under its own weight. Each beam was previously marked with a symbol by a carpenter, often with Roman numerals that were just chiseled in. And this allowed the whole entire frame of the house to be assembled like a giant jigsaw puzzle.
So who would have lived here in 1875? Heuerleute usually were landless or near landless rural workers. They were not really serfs because serfdom had already ended in the 19th century, but they were economically dependent on usually a large farm owner.
So they lived in the Heuerhaus under a contract with usually either the large farm owner, which was a Vollbauer, sometimes with the church and occasionally with noble estates. In exchange for the housing and a small garden plot, they were the ones to provide the agricultural labor, seasonal harvest work, and maintenance task. So it's kind of like a semi-dependent but also independent system.
But why was the system common in Lower Saxony? Lower Saxony just had very large consolidated farms, a very strong agricultural economy, and also a very large population growth. As families grew, not all children inherited land. So the Heuerling system became a way to keep labor local, provide minimal housing, maintain agricultural output, and it was just an economic solution to land inequality.
But the system slowly declined in the late 19th century because industrial jobs rose and people sought after these alternatives. And then in the late 20th century, mechanization reduced laboral demands, and especially after World War I and after World War II, the system kind of just largely disappeared. So many of these Heuerhauses then just became sold to occupants, converted into regular family homes, and even modernized with electricity and plumbing. So what began as a very dependent housing system became independent homes, and that was the extraordinary pivot in history, which is why this home is so special. I have something to own up to because when we first bought this house, I made the mistake of comparing it to Tudor England, since that's all I've ever seen before. But now I know better. But after coming to Germany, I was partially right, but also completely wrong for doing that. The main similarity became from the connection of Northern Europe and England in the North Sea trade routes, and also in this medieval Hanseatic League. As well as this, they shared their Protestant traditions, so there's definitely some understanding why I felt similarities in this house. However, the Tudor period started a lot earlier in England, around the 15th and 16th century, and they also did use a lot of timber framing, but they actually did it more for decorative reasons, and by 1875, under Queen Victoria, Britain was actually reviving this Tudor style, but more romantically, in literally called the Tudor Revival. And it was often for this aesthetic nostalgia during this industrialization period. As where in Germany, the Fachwerk was more putting practicality over style. And so our home was built for the necessity of the workers.
We really wanted to explore our home's history, as Fachwerk houses were just really important, and they have such a readable history. You can really see how materials were sourced locally, how communities built together, and how structure was made visible. So they actually really represent sustainability.
And the oak frames can continue to last centuries if they are maintained properly. They really connect us to the past and the future, the absolute incredible craftsmanship that they had to even build these houses, and the regional identity to where we are. So, in a world of fast construction and very uniform design, these houses remind us of memories. When a Fachwerk house collapses or is stripped of its structure, we don't just miss the wood and the brick, but also the knowledge they had. So somehow that 150 years later, this house now found us, and we would like to learn some of that craftsmanship and do the house justice as we turn it into our home. So we would like to now take a moment to explain to you a little bit about our style and vision so that we can take you along on this journey renovating it, and so you kind of know what to expect. So I feel like pretty much since the beginning, we kind of had like a very obvious theme. I feel like the first scenes were a little bit darker, like this shot, for example, was quite moody.
Yeah, actually.
But one thing we really liked was like a wooden theme.
That is true. Yeah. I think that's what we really decided very early when we viewed the house and bought the house, that we just want it to be very natural and very like warm or like earthy tones, basically.
Yeah. And actually we watched together like a lot of like renovations and like people buying houses as well. And I see that a lot of people, like especially in the UK, like to have a lot of color around the houses. And luckily for us, there wasn't too much color on the walls in here. But I feel like I completely get why some people do it, and it's like very cutesy, cottagey, but it's really just not us. I feel like color just makes us a bit wild, like it just doesn't feel good.
We did have the idea to maybe paint some of the wood or like furniture or maybe kitchen or the doors in a certain color, but we still felt like just having it as natural wood just suits the house so much better in the end.
Yeah, I feel like this house makes you want to be more on the natural side, like with the colors, with the tones, with everything you do here, with where we are kind of. So we really liked a lot of like stone looking as well, and like the tiles, and especially downstairs, instead of having like a wooden floor throughout the whole house, you were maybe thinking of putting wood in the office.
Yeah, I just thought if you sit in the office like all day basically, that, I don't know, it just might feel a little bit warmer.
Like cozy.
A bit cozier, yeah. But I already thought that it might just also look a bit weird if we have like basically the whole floor stone and then there's a cut at one room and then it's like wooden floor.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that's the right idea.
Yeah. But we kind of wanted tile downstairs instead of wood, mainly because we felt like there's so much wood in the house anyway. We want the beams to kind of stand out and have their show, because that's the main thing of the house. And if we had wooden floor as well, it would just kind of all blend in or not do it justice. But it's weird because I feel like upstairs we want to do a wooden floor, and I just feel like that fits upstairs. But downstairs I feel like the beams are just different.
But I also feel like in upstairs will be the bedrooms, and I do feel like having stone tiles in the bedroom is just not as warm and cozy,
Yeah.
you know. And then again, it's weird having wooden floor only in the bedroom, but not in the other rooms upstairs.
Yeah.
So I do think that just having a nice wooden floor would be a good solution. And I do think it should be like a bit old looking.
Yeah.
And they usually had pretty wide and long boards.
Yeah.
So I do think that that might be a good solution.
Yeah. But downstairs we do the tile.
For now, downstairs, I do think we should do tiles still.
For me, it's kind of like this old flagstone types that I really see. Like, that's what was kind of in our vision board from, I want to say, the beginning. These like country house flagstones where I'm thinking a muddy dog comes in and it doesn't matter. Like, they just get mopped up, and
Yeah.
it just feels a little bit homesy. I really don't want to do carpet, of course, anywhere, because I do want to have animals in the future, or we do. And I just feel like carpet, no matter how much you clean it, it's not really like...
No, that's true. And what I think is really important is that it just doesn't look too polished, like not too new or modern.
Yeah.
We just kind of need this imperfection to really suit the house, because nothing there is straight, nothing's perfect. It's all handmade, and it just needs to really match that style.
Yeah, we actually had a neighbor telling us to keep the red tiles. We're still thinking about it, but
Are we?
no.
I mean, it would be cheap to keep it, but...
Also, the color of the tiles, like the regular flagstones are usually like a dark gray, kind of brownish color, but it is a little bit more towards the modern side, I guess, to go for like a more light beige cream. But I just feel like the house is quite dark inside, so I feel like it would be a little bit dungeon-like if we had these gray tiles. So I feel like having beige colored tiles kind of warms the house up. So it's kind of like modern, but not modern, not perfect, but perfect.
Yeah, true. And I think what's really important is still the structure and the feel, that it's not just like a perfect surface, but to really have like these broken edges and really like these little bumps and holes in the stone.
I want it to still get dirty. I feel like downstairs, if we had a dog in the future, I don't mind if it looks a bit dirty.
We'll see. We'll see about that.
Then it's not too modern and perfect. But anyway, another thing that we had on our board from the beginning, which I can't believe, this was before we even took the ceiling down in the bedroom.
Actually.
And before we even sanded the house, we bought the house with these dark beams and the plaster in between. So we had no idea what was hiding underneath the ceiling. And in our vision board was this perfect natural wood ceilings everywhere. In all of the photos, basically, even from the beginning. Like, look at this kitchen.
And it's quite funny because we had the sand blasting guys there. And whilst they were already blasting upstairs, we just decided to have a look what's underneath the drywall in the ceiling. So we opened that a little bit and we saw that it's actually the exact same wood that was everywhere in our mood board.
I just can't believe it, to be honest.
And that was the best decision ever, because that really changed it so much.
Yeah.
And again, there you can just see how warm and natural the wood looks compared to like a black beam and white drywall.
Yeah, it's very contrasty.
Yeah.
But I actually was even thinking in the beginning of just working our butts off to make this look, even if that meant having to like make it ourselves, but it's just like super awesome that it's already there and the wood is even better than we could ever have imagined.
Yeah.
So I feel like these rooms even look 10 times more how we want them to already, just having the ceiling how it is now. But then since then, I feel like our vibe on our board changed ever so slightly. We went from this like modern farmhouse style to a little bit more what I would call our style. I don't really know how to describe it. I'm really not the best at house decor types, but I would say that we have a little bit of modern decor mixed with natural looking colors and materials.
Yeah. It is like, yeah, a bit cottagey, but then also some modern elements. But basically only to make the old elements stand out more.
Yeah, that's a good description. I like that. I mean, we're not planning to change any of the structures from the outside of the house or like, I mean, we knocked the kitchen wall down. We knocked this in between the beam and we're planning to have the bathroom done. But apart from that, I feel like we keep everything in the house the same.
And I do feel like it has a really good layout, to be honest.
Yeah.
It has this huge open space and a kitchen, dining, living room. And then we have like multiple smaller rooms that are just in a really good shape. And it's just really good to utilize them, I think.
I also really like, and I know we've had people say like to use the train room as a spare bedroom or like, God forsake the word, kids room. But what I really like that we designed is that the spare bedroom or like the guest room will be downstairs and they also get the downstairs bathroom. And I feel like it's just nice, or what we like is nice when you can have like your own space as a guest as well and you can kind of settle in and you don't feel like you're like in anybody's way. And I feel like upstairs is still a little bit smaller. Downstairs they just have a little bit more room to themselves, essentially by having the corridor and their own bathroom.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I really like our decision with that. I know it's not perfect, but I think for the kind of guests we'll be having, it's definitely better.
I mean, I wish we could give them a bigger room, but then on the other hand, we don't get guests like that often.
Yeah.
And then it would also be a shame for like once or twice a year, someone staying here, to like give away a big room that we can't use for ourselves then properly.
Yeah, exactly.
So I do think it's not 100% perfect, but it will do the job.
Yeah, they won't complain. One thing that I think we will struggle with a little bit is the kitchen, because I know we're perfectionists, and with the kitchen we have this temporary kitchen at the moment and we're kind of struggling to have enough space. It's actually a really big kitchen, but it still feels small.
But also how we have the layout now is that we put a lot of things on top of the kitchen counter.
Yeah.
So that takes away a lot of space.
You put a lot of...
because I cook all the time. And then also the layout is quite long, but it's kind of in the middle of the room. So
it's very
whenever
narrow.
you need something from the other side, you have to like walk all the way around. And that is a little bit annoying, but I also really have no idea how we could make it better.
Yeah.
Because it would also be cool having it like in front of the big window, like in the center of the room. But then you also cover the big window, the one that's in the background.
Yeah.
And that would just be a shame, really.
Yeah.
So
I feel like that's something, like we've had a lot of people say as well, like living in the house will make us come to conclusions better. And it's so true. And I feel like that's something we will definitely come to. But in terms of the style for the kitchen, we really loved like this cottagey style, wherever it is. I mean, this one's like a greenish color, but we really want it to feel cute and warm and that you want to be in the kitchen. But at the same time, we also don't want it to be a lot of too many whites. We really like this off blue, like this light lime color.
Mm-hmm.
But we're also trying to find ways to make it fit in the house so that it doesn't look odd placed. So that's something I think we have to figure out, the kitchen.
So yeah, the kitchen is the big question mark. not only how the fronts should look like, but also the top, the counter. I have no idea if we should go for like stone, maybe even a darker stone, or for wood. I feel like that is something that we still have quite a while till we get to that point.
Yeah.
But I feel like that is going to be a big decision for us.
I think it's really hard because all the kitchens look great on our inspo, but we're not stupid. We are aware that our house is so different. Like the ceiling is so much higher. It's not as cozy because it's such an open space. So the kitchen will have to be the perfect balance between wanting it to be like this cozy, cottagey kitchen and embracing that it's in such a big space and making it unique for that perspective as well. Because we also had the idea of having like a little kitchen bar on the other side of the beam, and so that you can sit by the window and things like that that aren't in the inspo. But yeah, when it comes to the looks, it's definitely along the lines of some cozy cottage, but unique. But basically all our rooms have a very similar theme. We want all the walls to be very like neutral. We don't like a super white because that's very like medical, but we want like a soft white, like cream, maybe beige. We understand it also all depends on the lighting, but we definitely don't want it to be like one shade. We do want like a little bit of structure in the walls because it adds to the house being older, maybe how they used to like plaster it, and I mean here is brick, but you know, inside.
Like basically like a bit of a lime wash look is what we might want to go for.
Yeah, and I think that's also a bit cozier. I think we've said cozy like 10 times already.
But I think that just brings it on point.
Do we just make our own house style now?
Yeah, we just call it cozy. German cozy.
Fachwerk cozy. That's our style. So if you want to go on our Pinterest board, Fachwerk cozy, you can copy our style, it's fine.
One thing that we really would like to change is the fireplace, because right now it's kind of like in the center of the room and it just looks a little bit lost. It's also on this corner of the wall. And we did had the idea to maybe make like a little stone frame around, how'd you call that?
Yeah, like a framing.
And then also have the same style of the same stone upstairs, because we also have the chimney basically going right through. So that might just make it a little bit more authentic kind of.
Yeah. I also like the idea of having different structures in the house. We originally thought of maybe putting the brick inside, but then I think that's a little bit cold and industrial feeling. And so we really love like the Cotswolds in the UK and those types of stone buildings. Also, I'm obsessed with stone hedges, like running through Yorkshire or even in Wales. The hills with the stone hedges is so beautiful. So that especially to me feels very homely. So if we can kind of incorporate these stones somehow, I think it would just make it feel like ours a little bit more, with a bit more story in what the house is. But speaking of story, you completely forgot that the whole reason the fireplace is there is because that wall wasn't there originally. It was an open fire. And they burnt the beams on top, right?
Yeah, they usually had like an open fireplace pretty much in the middle of the house just to distribute the heat the best. And you can really see that because it was an open flame, all the beams were really covered in like a very thick layer, like literally that thick of just like burnt wood basically.
Is it like
from
the
the smoke and
yeah. And even after the sanding, they are still like a lot more charred, these areas of the beam, which I think also adds so much story to the house. The house itself, as you know, has so much story. I saw a reel the other day about when you live in old houses, how many Christmases they've been through. And it's literally chilling to think how many times that fire has been on, or how many times those beams have been exposed to a fire, and how many Christmases were here, and how many Easters, and like how many families lived here. And
when we replaced the beams in the kitchen, and we took this wooden joint apart, and we even found some old straw inside in this joint, which just made us realize that there were literally people living inside 150 years ago, using it as like storage, living there, having animals in there. It just made it so like
Real.
yeah.
Yeah, it was so magical. And it's so stupid because we see straw every day,
Yeah.
but knowing that it's from a different time, that was just a different time than what we're in now. And they were different people and they had different morals. And
They literally didn't even have cars back then.
no,
It's
exactly.
crazy, yeah.
Living in this house, I just really hope that once we renovate it, we can do it justice. And I really feel like that will be one of our proudest moments ever. But yeah, I really couldn't imagine anything better than renovating this house and preserving it for hopefully another 100 generations.
100 generations. I mean, that's a big goal. That is a big goal.
It's been a long day. Another, let's say 100 years.
Yeah, that's realistic.